Okay, I'll take this opportunity to talk about a little bit more about video gaming, as it's been in the news a little more lately. So, before I get into that, let's take a step back into human nature and human history. There's always been the idea of othering, um, and scapegoating. Um, the idea of, well, somebody does something, what can we blame it on if not that person? And we've seen this time and time again throughout history, books, movies, music, whatever. However, it becomes rather interesting when it comes to video games, um, because video games are not passive entertainment. Gaming in general is an active entertainment. It's actually a mentally stimulating form of entertainment. That's the whole point of gaming in general, um, whether it be video gaming or board gaming. So this has presented a unique opportunity for people who want to scapegoat and blame one thing or another rather than um, looking at society in general or taking responsibility themselves. Let's admit the fact that humanity creates a lot of its own demons, I guess because we're either all stupid or bored. But the one thing about video gaming is what people don't realize is that to be good at gaming, to do well, it requires a lot of learning. Whether, and again, this board gaming, video gaming, because you have to learn a system and how to navigate through that system in order to complete it, and complete the objectives, which is, depending on the type of game, and they're all different types of mechanics that you have to learn and adapt to. And there are a lot of people that don't want the general populace, to learn at all. Um, let's not forget there's that whole Wilsonian ideology about teach people just enough to work in factories and don't let them know anything after that. And I'm paraphrasing, um, and putting my own little take on it. Um, and that's one narrative that the idea of video gaming and board gaming puts in jeopardy, because the more a person learns things or engages in the practice of learning things, the easier it becomes for people to learn things. I myself am actually an example of that. I had a hard time learning a lot of things when I was a kid. I didn't do well in school, and I had to play catch up quite often. But I never stopped learning, especially because I was a gamer, and gamer helped me to not only catch up but to uh, grow beyond the norm and the average. Um, Even though I still consider myself a pretty stupid person. I do a lot of stupid things. Let's face it. Um, I have been able to surpass all that in many ways. And one of the things that helped me is gaming. Um, but in a general sense, like I said, there are a lot of people who don't want this. People who crave power don't want the general populace to be able to think for itself, and that's one thing that gaming does. So it's why gaming has become, besides the fact that it's also more prevalent in culture, it's more mainstream. Um, there, um, there have been a lot of unique attacks from gaming. Like you get the whole notion of like Grand Theft Auto teaching kids to murder hookers and some stupid bullshit like that, and it's just lies. And these supposed reports are constantly getting debunked that say that violence in video games promotes violence in um, real life, and that anybody who knows anything about basic human psychology knows that's not true, because what promotes violence is a lack of agency. That's one of the biggest promoters of violence. And then in a video game, if something pisses you off, you can do something about it. But if you're watching a movie or listening to a song or whatever, there's nothing really you can do except turn it off, and which is also fine and it's a healthy response. But when it comes to violence in life and violence that's being perpetuated on people, even if it's subtle violence, people are going to respond. And then there are some people who are just violent, and that's just life. You think about like kids getting bullied, and it's I don't have any kids of my own, but I wonder how overboard some of this bullying, anti-bullying laws and all that stuff goes. Because, like I've said before, a certain amount of strife is healthy. You can't get stronger without having something to challenge you. So overall, I don't think we're going to see the attack on video games go away, and for that reason. However, at the same time, video games have also been turned against the people, especially those that enjoy them as well. I remember when I was a kid, this is just an example. When I was a kid, there was this game, Faxanadu, and if you wanted to, you could play through the game, which it was a good game for a time. Play through the game, beat it, no problem. But one thing I noticed was there at the very first town, there was this very powerful sword that you can buy, but it cost a lot of money. So if you wanted to, which I tried on my second playthrough, I decided to grind for the money to get that sword and play through the game again. And it makes it a little bit easier of an experience in playing through, only up to a certain point though. But now you see in games where, especially nowadays, where grinding has become part of the game. Which is just fucking ridiculous, to be honest with you. The grinding is something people do for work, or for something that they feel they're going to get a just worthwhile reward out of it, but not something I want to do as a form of entertainment. Most people play games for some sort of challenge, not to relive their work experience. And to be fair, this has been perpetuated a little bit by some gamers. I think one thing I can think of off the top of my head is the World of Warcraft community, when you had the guilds that would do endgame content, and for them, a lot of them would run their guilds like a business, which, let's face it, they were able to progress through the endgame content that way. So that that kind of perpetuated the problem there. But it used to be. I remember, was it Final Fantasy V? You get the adamantium from the moon. You go back to the dwarves. You get the ultimate weapon. You can beat the game, and there you go. That was the limit of finding all the cool stuff in the game. Now you play a game. You want all the cool stuff. You got to grind for hours, banking on random drops just to get something that looks a little different. And it's just like, what the fuck. So, and then beyond that, you have the whole pay to skip, which mobile games like Candy Crush, you want to play again, instead of waiting, well, you got to pay money. And my aunt was definitely a whale on that. She spent a whole lot of money on Candy Crush, and I'm just like, learn fucking patience, or find a different game. Find something equally rewarding. There's a bunch of clones out there, anyways. But these have been used as tools to kind of facilitate a demoralized and consumer mentality, whether it be through the need for grinding or the pay to skip aspects. Now, how this ties into politics? Well, a lot of AAA developers are, a lot of AAA publishers are publicly traded companies. So when publicly traded companies make a lot of money, especially through a financial recession, people take notice, especially those in politics. Even beforehand, people in politics were taking notice because you had, in World of Warcraft, you had a problem with what was called gold farming. People who would farm items to sell them for money in the game, or they would find some way to maximize making money in the game, and then they would sell the money from the game for real world profit. And if I remember correctly, it was actually Steve Bannon bought one of those gold farming companies from somebody in the Obama administration. So that just goes to show you there how much politics have been interested in gaming. On the flip side, though, it is pretty interesting to see when you have these MMOs, massively multiplayer online games that have their own economies and how they shift. You have what happened with the World of Warcraft economy, as how the economy changed through its various expansions, and then how the economy changed once people were able to buy gold, and the economic shift in the game once people were able to pay real world money to get gold really shows, in my opinion, really shows you how fragile an economy is to the ability to create money. And you can actually parallel that to what's going on right now. And you have other in-game economies, EVE Online, and other MMO-style games that have had some interesting things happen to them throughout the lifespan of the game. And I don't think that's something that economists pay enough attention to, because they're really microcosms of one economy or another. Because economics is economics. Right? It doesn't matter where it is. It all operates on the same basic principles. Somebody wants something. Somebody has something. So yeah, especially with the publicly traded aspect of AAA gaming, it's obvious at that point to see where you got a lot of these political ideologies being shoehorned into games. And as I said before about the difference between being overtly and passively political, as I spoke about it in another video, where these companies are becoming more overtly political, and like I say, it's just all part of a distraction. And that's why I've leaned away from the AAA gaming. They're participating in this distraction from real issues, creating all this trash just to push narratives, and ultimately you can see here how the whole practice is biting them in the ass, because all the AAA companies are going, at least looking like they're going downhill. Not a lot of people are buying it. It's only really the consumer gamers that are buying them anymore. I make a distinction because there's a spectrum of gaming, as far as I'm concerned, between traditional gaming, which is wanting to be involved in a hobby, wanting to explore the hobby and the different facets of it, and the consumerized end of something, which is I either just want to pay attention to this series, this developer, or I just flat out want stuff made so that I'm going to like it and fuck everybody else. So within gaming, you have that whole spectrum of gamers, and really when the Xbox came out, that's when you had an influx of consumer gamerism, or consumer gamers, because that's what Xbox marketed it to. It was, before, it used to be all the nerds playing the video games because they just wanted to kind of be off to the side and not really deal with all the bullshit mainstream stuff, and we're interested, just like reading a book or whatever. You get interested in these these fascinating stories, in these fascinating worlds, but you get to interact with them. And when Xbox came out, basically its advertising premise was, hey, jocks, we want to beat nerds at all the stuff that they consider fun. So it's important when thinking and talking about gaming to realize that there is this spectrum between the more traditional aspect and the more consumer aspect, because that's that's not really in gaming that's not limited to gaming. That's really in anything that people enjoy. There There are people who enjoy something because they want to explore it, and there's people that enjoy something because they want to take it and make it their own. Which is, they want, they want to co-opt it for one thing or another. So part of this whole spectrum has been used to basically denounce gamers, make gamers that look to be bad people by showing one end of the spectrum and not the other, which is typical. But like I said, gaming has a different challenge because there's a lot of people that don't want people to actually be a part of real games, real challenging games, something that tests them either intellectually or through their dexterity or whatever, because it serves towards a narrative. So that is my take on how gaming has been used against the people, and yeah, you got your own opinions, share 'em.